welcome back inside our Yates Cup Saturday studios. My name is Adam Jenkins, and with me is Alec Reed. Wow, what can you say? Not what we were expecting. We expected some dominance from the Western Mustangs, but to have 43 points in the first half, I don't think either of us were prepared for that.
No, and I don't think Laurier was prepared for that at all. 43 points and a half is unbelievable when you consider we thought they dominated Guelph last week, Adam. They put up 66 in the entire game. They put up 43 in one half. That's unbelievable.
We're going to break down the half a little bit deeper throughout these next 15 minutes or so. But Alec, I want to quickly ask you your thoughts. After the first quarter, it was a very close game. They were trading shot for shot. What happened? What switch was Western able to hit that just took them to a whole new level?
Well, I don't know if it was one particular thing. It just seemed like they were doing everything a lot better. And I think the biggest thing for them was they just started giving the ball to a guy like Cedric Joseph. And he really was able to break that game open. You mentioned a few kick returns, but I think the biggest thing was they're averaging 10.7 yards per carry on the ground. You give the ball to a guy like Cedric Joseph, and he just makes plays. You know, he bounces off of tackles. We saw on the first touchdown run there, and he just finds ways to create more than what he should get. Laurier has done a good job of bottling him up at the line of scrimmage, but you watch him just break off these extra runs. And when you talk about this Western offense, we talked about how there was a plethora of running backs and there was going to be multiple guys touching the ball, but it's been Cedric Joseph. He's the only running back to touch the ball right now, Chris Merchant being the other ball carrier, but he's just finding ways to get into space and really make a lot of big things happen. So I'm really impressed with the way that Cedric Joseph has been playing so far today.
Well, while Western has been impressive on the ground, Laurier, as I mentioned, was there for a little while. You can never count them out, but they've shown that they're willing to be creative, both on their kick returns and a new set that they're trying out on offense.
Well, it's sort of not really by choice. For some reason, they've went away from Lavondre Gordon. Perhaps it's with injury, or maybe he's just not really in the cards today. But they've just had to come up with new and creative things. We saw it even on a few kick returns to start off after a few scores. Western was really dominating the game up to this point, and Laurier with a nice reverse to Curly Gittens Jr., who's been their star today. He's really tried to do everything for this team. And off of that, you give the guy, you give Curly Gittens Jr. a lot of confidence and a lot of swagger, because now he's got a big return. His legs are flying, and he's really into the game. Off of that, the next kick return that they got, they faked it. And while it wasn't as successful as the reverse, you'd see that it just keeps Western on their toes, and that's what you have to do against Western. And speaking of like being on their toes, you look at this new set that they brought in. 4 guys in the backfield, a lot of motion, a lot of mixing it up. Lavondre Gordon motioning it to a receiver. You give the ball to Curly Gittens Jr. Now, that might not look like a big run at him, but a run of 7 yards for a guy who's normally a receiver is a big run in that situation, because they really haven't gotten much going on offense, and that's good to see Curly Gittens Jr. try to get going.
Well, especially considering how clear it's been that the passing game is all really Laurier has had and all they are going to have to rely on in the second half. So for them to use a little bit of the run to keep Western, as you mentioned, on their toes is a big point of emphasis for them. I want to talk about, Alec, the Western return game as well. It hasn't just been Laurier who's been strong returning the ball, both kicks and punts. Western has been really good too.
Well, really good or incredible, because 3 kick returns for 147 yards and 1 touchdown. Throw in a nice punt return, and you really just have a full flipping of the field every time you're returning the football. Sananas has 146 all-purpose yards in the game and 1 touchdown. That leads the game so far, which is crazy to think, because he doesn't touch the ball on offense. And that's what's unbelievable about this whole thing, is that the special teams for Western is something that we don't really talk about. They don't really have anything flashy on special teams like we see with maybe Guelph, who has a bunch of different formations, or Laurier, who has like a Curly Gittens Jr. to break off plays. But you look at what Western has done, special teams in this game, that's really what broke the game open. It really was the turning point for them and why they've been able to jump out to this really astronomically big lead.
And what we knew about Western is that they could move the ball on the ground, and it's not like they're incapable of doing anything else. That's just been one of their main strengths this season. So to see them add in just another weapon in returning the ball, that's part of the reason you're seeing such a wide scoreline at half, because you're scouting and you're game planning for what you expect, which is the run, and as has clearly been centered on one person in Cedric Joseph, when you add in an element like kick returns, it really just adds another weapon to this arsenal that clearly Michael Falls and co is having trouble defending.
Well, there's so many weapons on the Western Mustangs. We talked about the weapons in Brenton Hall and Curly Gittens Jr., Lavondre Gordon on Laurier, but I think that we've overlooked how many weapons Western really has. Look at Chris Merchant. I mean, we're halfway through the halftime show, and we haven't even talked about their starting quarterback, which is crazy because he's 12 of 16 for 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 64 yards on the ground on just 6 carries. He's able to move the ball with his legs. He has confidence standing in the pocket, throwing the ball, really great off the play action game, and he's just been a dominant force, and he's getting overlooked because of how dominant Cedric Joseph has been on offense and how dominant this special teams unit has been. So it's just almost laughable that we're overlooking a quarterback when they've put up 43 points on offense.
Well, considering the fact that the box score right now could very well be a final box score to someone who missed the time at the very top, you're right, it's been astronomical, his performance, and he's clearly playing with confidence and some swagger. That is always dangerous for any quarterback when they're feeling it as much as he is. Speaking of quarterbacks, we have to talk about Neville. If Laurier is going to have a chance to come back into this game, he's going to have to be the catalyst moving the ball through the air because the run hasn't been that effective, and now with a deficit this big, Western's not going to slow down on offense. I asked you almost half-heartedly before we came up on air do you think at some point that Greg Marshall will take his guys off if the league continues to grow? And you said no. We may see 100 points from Western Mustangs today the way they're going.
Well, we might, but the only thing that's going to stop that is going to be Michael Neville, because we talk about how great Western's offense has been. Laurier's offense needs to stay on the field, and they need to put the ball in the hands of Michael Neville, because this is what he's done throughout this game, is throwing the ball deep. 9 of 17 isn't a great completion percentage, but 162 yards and 2 touchdowns is game breaker numbers. I think we might be talking about Michael Neville having 500 yards in this game, because I don't think they run the ball once in the second half. You don't have a choice at this point. You got to give the ball to your best player. Let him do work, because you're down really, really large. You got to score, and you got to score a lot quickly. So Michael Neville really could come and shine in this game in the second half, and we might be talking about the greatest comeback of all time, when we thought we had that last year. So.
Well, something that makes it even more dangerous for the Western Mustangs is, as you mentioned, Laurier has to throw the ball. You give a defense as good as Western the opportunity to sit back in a cover 3 and just say, okay, bring it to us. We're not going to let you score. They know the game plan, so certainly something we're going to keep an eye on. But speaking of keeping an eye on, Jack Moore and Julie Teixeira have been live on location, trying to stay as warm as possible. Not the luxury of a heat-controlled studio like we have, but nevertheless, they're at the heart of the action, and it's time to check in with the two of them.
Jack Moore. Now we're here following a really exciting second half at Western University's TD Waterhouse Stadium in London, Ontario. Both quarterbacks performing really well that first half. Merchant running the ball really well, and Neville throwing absolute bombs. Tell me about their impact.
Yeah, well, Chris Merchant has done a great job at finding open seams, not only in the Laurier secondary, but also in the running lanes when he's dropping back to throw. One thing that he's doing really well is hitting that field side against Christian Hutter-Coppin, who is in for Ron Kinga, who has a broken arm in this game. So Western doing a really good job of attacking the young second-year corner on the field side and hitting Malik Bessiger a lot. Michael Neville had a really good first half. He threw a jump ball to the best jump ball receiver in the OUA in Brendan Hall, and then he threw a 74-yard dime to Brendan McCracken, who had a great first half. He did a good job running the ball and catching the ball. But Michael Neville really just needs to slow things down, nickel and dime. Western's defense came ready to play. And I mean, Curligans Jr. had 2 slip motion screens where Western just came up and absolutely destroyed him. So great job by the Western defense. Let's see if they can keep it up and keep the OUA MVP and Curligans Jr. off the scoreboard.
Absolutely. Now, a big part of Western's success in that half, their defensive back, Mike Sananas. Tell me about his impact.
Yeah, well, it's not actually on the defensive side of the ball that he's had the biggest impact. It's on the third side of the ball. It doesn't often get talked about. It's in the return game. He had a huge 93-yard kick return for a touchdown after the Brendan McCracken touchdown to the Laurier Goldhawk. And these traded blows in the first quarter, and in the second quarter, it was all Western. But the field positioning, like we talked about at the beginning of the game, how important it is for those kickers to get the ball away and how important it is for those offenses to win. Absolutely 100% winning the field positioning right now, and that's why they have 43-16.
Now, keeping in mind the deficit that Laurier came back last year in this exact game at the same time, how predictions are for the next half?
Well, last year in the Yates Cup, Laurier was up 19-13 at the half. I think a lot of people get that. A lot of momentum going into the half, and then it was all Western in the third quarter, like it was all Western in the second quarter there. So great job by the Western Mustangs to get out to that early lead.
if Laurier needs to come back, they need to get a lot of stops on offense. It's a great job by Laurier. There needs to be a great job by Laurier to get it done offensively and defensively to get stops against Western.
Thank you so much for your insight, Jack. Now sending it back to downtown Toronto and Adam.
Thanks so much, Jack and Julie. Hope you two can stay warm and that you enjoy the second half. Great stuff from them, Alec. It's always, it's one thing to watch a game from a television set hundreds of kilometers away, but it's a whole new ball game, no pun intended, to be there in person and really be able to get a sense of what the mood is like in the stadium as well. And if I know TD Stadium, these Mustang fans are loving it.
Well, that's really what it is. I mean, TD Stadium is deceptively loud. It's a very compact stadium with a lot of bleachers, and it feels a lot louder than what it actually looks. It doesn't have a ton of seating that people can kind of crowd in really close, but it is really, really loud when it gets going.
All right, so we saw the players starting to take the field there, just behind Jack and Julie, which means we don't have a ton of time, but I do want to ask you, Alec, your keys to the second half. Pretty straightforward for the Laurier Golden Hawks, but explain what you have in store for us.
Well, you got to score and score now. I think that's what it comes down to, and you can't really let this moment get past you. You got to take each individual drive as if it's the biggest drive of the game, because at this point it is. You look at what they did last year, 8 minutes to go, down 21. They managed to get 3 scores in that amount of time. This isn't out of possibility for them to come back. They need to score on every drive and take every drive as if their season is on the line, because at this point, Adam, it is. Sorry, I just got Jack on the brain. And I think Jack actually brought up a really good point. They've really been nickel and diming. Michael Neville's really been nickel and diming this defense and hitting a few over the top, and those were the 2 touchdowns we saw. If they want to score and score quickly, they need to stop with the 5-yard completions. They need to start hitting balls down the field, 20 yards, 30 yards, score and score quickly, because that's really what's going to turn this game around for them.
So having said that, I think your key to the game for the Western Mustangs is even more simple than that.
Don't blow it, because I mean, you're up 21 with 8 minutes to go last year. You're up 27 now. Just don't blow it. Don't let this moment get bigger than you. You are here. You got to take every drive as if you can finish the game right there. You score again. The game's over if you just play the way you've been playing, and don't let this moment get any bigger than what it is. Go out and win this football game, and just don't blow it. It's really that simple.
Score prediction?
Wow. I think Western has another 20 points in them at least, because I think they're going to really salt out this game. They're going to run the ball. But I would say something like 63-30, I would say, is going to be about the final score. I think Western is just going to keep the gas on. They're not going to try and go crazy throwing the ball, so they're not going to score a ton of points, but I don't think 63 points is out of the realm of possibility.
I'm not even going to give an attempt at a score prediction here. I think as much as I thought I knew where the game was going to go, it went in a completely different direction, so I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. Speaking of scores, we're going to check it quickly at the out-of-town scores. The Laval Rouge are up 22-8 over the Montreal Carabins midway through the second quarter in Quebec City, and the Hardy Cup just underway as well. In Calgary, the UBC Thunderbirds have jumped out to a 7-1 lead. It's almost time to get back to the field for the second half of the Yates Cup, which means that's going to do it for us here today at Yates Cup Saturday. On behalf of the Pick 6 Productions team, we want to thank everyone involved in this new digital initiative. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And of course, I have to extend huge thank yous to our producer, Nico Canavo, Director Matt Kelly, technical producers Brian Withers, Ryan Sykes, Usama Farouk, as well as project manager Ashley Pinozzo, Director of Photography Connor Nickel-Penman, and Chief Financial Officer Nick Pavlich. For Julia Teixeira, Jack Moore, Alan April, my co-host Alec Reed, my name is Adam Jenkins. We hope you enjoy the rest of the ball game here for the 110th Yates Cup.